Cool. All right. So if anybody has questions, go ahead and type them in any of the chats, and we'll read them back and answer them as best as we can. Until we get some questions, just hang out. I don't know. What's the coolest thing you've been working on lately?
Coolest thing. I don't know. I think the way the fuse stuff works is pretty cool. Looked it up. It's quite different to like any other approach to anything, you know. So, yeah, there's some deep magic that went into making that work.
Nice. I haven't.
What about you?
I've been working on Ellie a bunch, but that's been mostly like server side work. I thought after I built this like interesting Elm front end, I was gonna have all these like cool thoughts about running Elm in production and stuff, but I have like exactly zero thoughts about running Elm in production because it's just like it's so simple. You just write it and then push it up and it's done. It's a very, very uninteresting ops story so far. I'm sure it changes as your programs grow. I mean, you can probably attest to that from working at Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think more of that comes in when you're dealing with so when you have like a single application, like a single feature kind of, then that problem isn't really a problem because that's how Elm is designed to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's designed to focus on mainly only having like one page. But I think when it starts to get like 16 pages and they each have like some overlap in code and they use like slightly different packages and they each have like 500, well not 500, a few files associated, then that's when it starts to become like a problem, I think.
Right on. Yeah. And then yesterday I started seeing if I could reverse engineer a couple parts of the REPL. And I learned all about how Haskell encodes binary files and stuff like that. Which is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I was trying to in this REPL that I want to make, I want it to be like a really nice UI. What was I going to say? I want it to be a nice UI, but I also wanted to like do all the stuff that the REPL that you get with the platform does, like showing the type of the thing. So that involves reading the .elmi file and parsing that, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah. And that part, the format that the elmi file uses is like non-standard for other languages. Mm-hmm. So it's like the reason why no tooling really parses it is because it's hard to figure out how to parse it correctly. Mm-hmm. But it would be good to have like some other tooling that isn't the compiler and Elm package that can actually read those things.
Yeah. Okay, so we got a couple questions in here. One is, how does a pure Elm app with no HTML and JavaScript in the page interact with search engines?
Do you want to answer that, or shall I?
Go for it.
It depends on the search engine. If it can run JS, then it will just be loaded as like JS. I don't think you have to worry about that. You might get like old web crawlers that can't load JS, and in that case, then they won't be able to fully search your site for everything. An example might be the way that like links are put together in Elm, because everything is stored in the virtual DOM in a memory representation and not HTML. Then the stuff actually needs to be rendered before it can be crawled. So you might get like your index page logged, but you won't get any of the content or subsequent pages logged. But I'm pretty sure most crawlers now support JS. And for the ones that don't, you can use like the Elm server-side renderer project to handle that, to just like turn an initial page into HTML so that it can be crawled. But I don't really think that you need to be honest. Anything to add, Luke?
Just a little follow-up information. The person who asked the question, his name's Matt. He says he's got a photo album app, and he just wants to know if Google will be able to find all the images that are nested in the album. Oh, I see. So like you have links to the different sets of images, and you want to know if Google will crawl them. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. It's pretty much the same as if you have a JavaScript program. It all compiles to JavaScript in the end.
Yeah. Like, if you are worried about that, then definitely it's worth considering just like doing initial render on the server, so that your content can be indexed. But most should work.
Yeah. Google for sure.
Yep.
Okay. We have another question. How will WebAssembly influence Elm? Ooh, that's a good one.
Do you want to start on that one?
Sure, I'll start with that one. So there's definitely some intention to get a compiler backend for WebAssembly. It's just that WebAssembly is really new, and Elm requires garbage collection. So we need a garbage collector in WebAssembly before we can even really start to think about what a backend would look like. But I think the other side of that is that yes, we would love to see a WebAssembly backend for Elm because it would be faster. I mean, that's obvious. I'm sure you already knew that.
Like, a couple of things to consider is that the way that Elm is written right now is that it's very language agnostic, and like it can very easily change what it targets. In theory,
Mm-hmm.
like you'd have to rewrite like the core implementation and the virtual DOM implementation, but changing how Elm itself is compiled, like the Elm that you write as a user, is pretty easy and wouldn't take that long to do. It's just none of the infrastructure around WebAssembly is there yet, so it's not really, an option so far.
I read the other day that there is an externs interface from WebAssembly into JavaScript as well as the other way around. So I imagine figuring out how to do virtual DOM from some sort of WebAssembly core runtime that just calls out to a JavaScript function wouldn't be so hard. I think just like the basic levels of building a garbage collector and then actually writing the compiler to WebAssembly are like the huge steps that need to be taken.
Yeah, I also don't know how it handles like async operations. Like the way that Elm's internals work are based around like a handwritten scheduler in JS, and I don't know how well that would translate to WebAssembly. It might be like trivial to be exactly the same kind of thing, but yeah, that's another thing that could be weird.
Yeah, I also have no idea how that works. Okay, what other questions? So we did WebAssembly. We have a comment. I would love to see something like hot reloading in Elm. 0.19 is adding code splitting. Should make hot reloading easier. Is anything else planned for hot reloading code? I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure you can do hot reloading now. Like, what's it called? If you Google Elm hot loader or something like that,
Yeah.
and that has like hot module loading.
Is that is that a Webpack thing specifically?
Yeah, that's a Webpack thing. But the idea is like really easy. Like like you can implement hot module reloading in pure Elm, and it's not so well. You can, yeah. But the easiest way to do hot module reloading is actually to hook up. Is to hook up Elm's internals to Firebase. So you have like a development Firebase account, and that will just sync like everything you do, like to the model or the actions, straight to Firebase. And then when you load, just try and reach out to Firebase and try and decode that model into your new model, and yeah. And that's like 5 lines of code in 0.18. So,
Nice.
and like the time it takes to set up a Firebase account.
Right on. Until Google sunsets Firebase, as you know they will.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to say that about Google while using their products? They're listening.
Sunset it right in the middle of it. Google Hangouts is shut down.
Yeah, but I don't know of anything planned for hot reloading, and to be honest, if you go onto Elm Dev and you read Evan's updates about what he's working on, you know pretty much as much as we do about what's going to happen. So,
yeah.
Yep. That looks like all the questions so far. I saw like, it was either 0.16 or 0.17, you did a demo of NoRedInk's, one of the pages on NoRedInk, and you would like click a drop down in the header, and then in a different browser, the same drop down would open because you were sending the messages or actions across. How did that work? Was that with Firebase?
So I actually implemented that like 5 different times.
Nice.
And the initial implementation was just like a dead simple node server, which was hooked up to the Elm's runtime stuff. So like every time an event came through Elm, then it would send it also over to the other server. And then the server would sync it down to the clients, and the clients would try and run that event. Meaning that you could have like every single device on the page in sync, if you wanted to. But then I re-implemented that, like, and the last one was in Firebase, and yeah.
Nice. So we have a question. It says task ports ? And then there's a link to an example that I'm going to Google right now.
Yeah, I've read something about it, but I didn't pay too much. It was a long time ago.
I have quite a bit.
Something like you want to send out tasks report or something?
I have quite a bit to say about task ports because Evan came to Chicago and we hung out and talked about them for a while. And there's a lot of interesting issues they raise. I'm going to take a look at this example that was shared. Okay, it's exactly what you'd expect. It's a port that sends out a task.
Can you send me a link to that one? I can't quite read that.
I will. Okay. Where's the chat in the Hangout? There we go. There we go. So task ports are something I'd really like to have. There are a number of occasions where I've come across something where you want to send some information in a request response kind of style, or you want to ask the browser platform for something, and that particular feature hasn't been implemented as an Elm library yet. So for example, like you can get the current like geolocation position with a task, but things like battery status, you can ask for the current battery level, and like the current network status, you can ask for like the current network strength in certain browsers. Those are the kind of things that I would like to be tasks. So you just you ask for it, and then it does an effect and sends you back the information through a port. The problem is tasks are chainable. So if you have a task that represents arbitrary code, that code could either never resolve, and that might not be on purpose, or it could blow up at runtime, and then you're not really sure what to do because there might be multiple levels of callbacks that are happening in there, and the error might be difficult to catch. So one way around this that I believe is inspired by the way that Erlang handles sending messages is to just have a timeout to say this on the JavaScript side, this task port handler has, I don't know, a second and a half to finish doing what it's doing. That's as long as we expect it to take. Otherwise, it'll fail. And so if you blow up at runtime but don't catch the error and it just kind of hangs, it'll still close the task eventually. And that way, if you chain on that task, you won't have a whole bunch of other stuff waiting for it to finish. So I guess to summarize, the main concern is ending up with a task that just never finishes and then putting that in a chain somewhere and really having weird results.
So the goal of a task port is to effectively bind together what is now a command port and a subscription port.
Yeah.
Instead of needing to keep track of the ID, then you can just send something out and get a task back, which would be the subscription.
Right.
Yeah, which makes sense. That is a useful thing to have for sure. To be honest, I don't think I would if I find myself needing that, then I would personally write my own native to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably just as likely to break.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
It would be an interesting answer to the whole, we can't publish native code, we can't publish effect managers concerns.
You can't also publish ports, so.
That's true. Fair enough.
Yeah. If you could publish ports, which I personally believe that you should be able to, then that would be good. But there's some blockers there, you can't. At the moment, ports have name collisions, so publishing a package that could name collide is not good.
Right. That's true. I had an idea for an intermediate solution where instead of getting a task, you got a command, but one of the arguments to the command was like you do with tasks where you have a result error A that goes to some message that you pass into this port, and then you don't have to deal with the question of what if I chain this and it never completes, but you still have the possibility of memory leaks. So it can still never finish. It wouldn't ruin your chain.
Mm. Yeah. I guess. Yeah. I guess what is the question?
The question was just task ports ?
Okay. So just to add to what we said about how to implement them and the concerns, and if you need task ports right now, then you can achieve the same thing by sending out data with an ID from Elm and getting it back. And a good way of getting that ID might just be having a atomic counter, which you just update every time you send out a subscription, and then keeping a dictionary of all the things. But yeah,
Right on.
If the questioner wants more information about something, yeah, please ask.
Good deal. Yeah. So any follow-ups on that are welcome. Okay, we got another question from Matt. He says, I've had trouble with 204 empty responses and JSON decoding. Is there a straightforward way to do that? That's a tricky one.
We have handled that at No Red Ink, and I know why, because it broke everything when we
Awesome.
it broke everything when we updated stuff. Let me see if I can find the commit.
So while Noah's looking for that, the problem that you're running into is that Elm's JSON decoder will try to run JSON.parse on whatever you pass it in. So even if you tell it to like just decode.succeed with like unit or something, 0 tuple, it'll still fail because it's trying to parse nothing as JSON.
So where should I put this link?
If you send it to me in the Hangout chat, then I will cross-post it.
So in this link, there's I don't think.
Remove any web addresses and try again. Oh, come on. Really?
Actually, that's the wrong link. Here we go. This is the link. Sorry, my bad.
Pull 15.
So we have a library. Oh, No Red Ink had a library called On Rails, and On Rails is like a little wrapper around the Rails API, which does some stuff like adding the token to Rails requests and responses and stuff. And we upgraded that for 0.18, and we were hit by this change, which we didn't know about. But the way we handled it actually turned out pretty nice, because in 0.17 and below, HTTP bad status stuff would come through as an error. But now they come through as like their own type of thing, which means that you have to special case the JSON. So this pull request shows you how to fix that problem and get around it. Basically, if you look at the decode errors function on line 244, then that kind of shows you how to deal with it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Something I do if I just want to throw away the response altogether, and resolve with unit if it's a 204, is instead of doing, what is the HTTP function? It's like expect JSON. Instead of doing expect JSON with decode.succeed unit, I'll do expect string response, and then like just do like always okay of unit. So it's going to fail as long as you're using JSON at all. So you should use a different kind of expect. Cool. Okay, so we have a question. Do any of you know if the persistent cache package will ever be released? Smiley face.
I don't think it's a priority right now.
Yeah.
Is my intuition.
Yeah, I can't answer that definitively. I don't know. I thought I saw some commits on it recently.
I feel like I've heard that there was some movement there, but I don't think there is right now. That would be a better question to bring it up on the mailing list, I think.
Mm-hmm. Maybe not. That was several months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Um,
Okay.
I think generally a good rule in Elm is that if you need something like that, then the best place to question it and be vocal about it is on the mailing list. And specifically state, like, I'm trying to do this, and this is how, like, local storage will help me solve that problem, and this is what it would look like. Because that way it's a lot easier to have, like, the evidence that you need to go forward and, like, okay, now I know what they need, so this is what they need.
Right. As sort of a tangent for like mailing lists, not etiquette, but like a guide to being successful in asking for things on the mailing list. If you come in and say, this thing should exist, that's probably not going to get very much traction or attention. But if you come in and say, we had a particular problem and it seems relevant to other people, and we talked to some other people and they had similar problems, and we came up with a way to solve it for now, but it might do better as a part of the platform for these reasons, that's going to get some attention.
There's a really good, really old document, which is plain text HTML. Like, the only tags they use is like P and then H1, called How to Ask Questions the Smart Way.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know if you've seen it before.
I haven't.
But I just linked it in the Hangouts. But that has like a good breakdown on like the kind of things that you need to think about when you're asking something on a mailing list. And yeah, it basically sums up how to write a good question that is easy to answer. And if something is easy to answer, people are more likely to do it. So, yeah. Just as also on the tangent of how to ask questions on the mailing list.
Okay. So the person who asked about persistent cache, he or she or they say, the thing is though, it's not really a problem. It would just get rid of ports from my application and even maybe some packages that would otherwise rely on ports and can't be published. Yeah.
I mean, from my personal perspective, I believe that if you're using ports, that's a problem. Like, not like a huge problem, but if you can get rid of ports, then that's a lot nicer. Like, the more stuff you can do directly in Elm, that's where you want to be. But ports are a great way to get things done.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about ways that I use ports in Ellie. I used a bunch. There's one that sends a bool every time some text, some part of the model for like your current working version changes, and then that's just tracked outside of the program so that I can do weird stuff with the history API to keep you from leaving the page before showing you a prompt to save your work. Just like odd things like that that don't quite fit into Elm because you need to do weird JavaScript.
Yeah, that's definitely been like the case where I've used ports. It's like, yeah, it just doesn't really make sense because like the browser API is weird or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Daniel asked, he says his project got over 20,000 lines of code, and now there's a file which, if deleted, makes the build take an hour. It's the file with all the app routes.
Deleted. Oh no, edited. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, edited. Oh, oops. Wow.
I
Sorry.
assumed deleting it would make like nothing compile.
Yeah, I was like, huh, that's not right.
You know, I'm going to take a pretty good bet that you have a case statement which is like over 32 possible routes. If I had to guess, that's why it's taking so long to compile.
What does the compiler do over 32 cases?
There's been a bug. I don't know if it got fixed, but basically case statements which are too big just don't handle very well. I don't remember the technicalities of why, and there's a GitHub issue for it somewhere, which I will try and find.
Hey Fred.
But it's definitely like a telltale sign.
Right on. Fred's here. He said long case statements can take compiler into the woods.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we see if there's a... Should we see if we can link to the issue for that?
Yeah. Trying to find it. So, good news. The issue has just been closed 3 days ago.
Ooh.
And that fix will be coming with 0.19.
Fantastic.
Here's the issue.
Cool. I wonder why Google Hangouts doesn't let you share links. Or not Hangouts, but the live chat in the streaming on YouTube.
I assume it's so that you can't like brigade and go and invade websites or something.
Gotcha. Well.
34 branches. Yep. There's your problem.
Nice. Okay, so we have a question. What was the inspiration for creating Ellie? I'll be really short on that one. The inspiration for that was I got really tired of looking at like going through issues on core that were more complicated than just like read these 5 lines of code and like making a project for them and running them or copying stuff into elmlang.org/try. And I also got kind of tired of just like hand benchmarking pull requests that people were making. So I wanted to make a thing where you could, now I can post links, awesome. I wanted to make a thing where you could like save code and then run it in the same place. And that would be really great for people to make SC. What is the abbreviation? SCC.
Small, self-contained. It's SSSCE, I think.
Short, self-contained, correct. One of those. An example that works that is as small as it can possibly be.
Short, self-contained, correct example. Yeah.
Awesome. So I wanted a place where people could make those and share them and run them. And then as I was building this, I was like, well, this could be a really good thing for the community in general, for people to just share ideas. I see a lot of people sharing links to gists and saying, paste this here or there. And all of the other things that came before it, short, self-contained. Oh, self-contained is 2 words, so it's SSCCE. Okay, thank you. what was I saying? Yeah, I saw lots of people sharing like gists and saying paste them here and there, and all of the things that came before Ellie had incrementally more features of the Elm platform, but Ellie has all of them except for like making a native module, which I don't want to add right now. But we're doing the remote meetup on March 20 something. I don't have Slack open. Do you happen to know what day that is?
I think it's 22nd
March
because it
22nd.
was the 21st, but we moved it.
Okay. Yeah, March 22nd, we're going to do a remote meetup, and my talk is going to be about Ellie, so I'll talk more about it then.
Sorry, 23rd.
23rd. Okay.
My bad. Yeah.
Okay. Now we have a question about routes from Daniel. On the route topic, is any routing library a clear frontrunner? Using URL parser and maintaining two case statements to go between routes and strings smells wrong. Oh, like I got you. Like converting from a union type to the string that represents the actual path.
I don't really have an opinion.
Yeah,
I think
I've only ever used navigation, and it's been fine. All of the things that I don't like about how routing works or client-side navigation works in Elm have really nothing to do with like an API and everything to do with how it works for the platform itself. It's just a little bit cumbersome no matter how nice you make the API.
How do you mean?
So for, I guess, I don't really like having to have a whole section of my like update for dealing with route changes as sort of like a separate pattern matching scenario. I kind of just just to kind of update the model in exactly the same way for every single thing. So if it's pages we're talking about, it really annoys me because all I'm doing is like taking the same part of the model and changing it to a different value and then having that flow through the view. And that's like a whole bunch of logic just to do that. So it'd be really great if you could just say like these files are different pages and mains in each of these files are what should be run. So it happens behind the scenes.
Yeah. I mean, you can do that now, just just not with like client-side navigation, but
right.
like proper URLs.
Right.
But yeah. But maybe 0.19 will fix that.
Yeah.
So.
But regarding which library is a clear frontrunner, I don't really know. I guess navigation is the most popular. It's hard to talk about popularity statistics for Elm packages.
Yeah. I think the one that I see being used the most is, outside of navigation, is Elm Root by BogMP, which in theory is taken over by Elm Community, but nobody's published that. So maybe we forgot to do that. By we, I mean I. Probably shouldn't spread the blame. Oh no, that's someone else. It just wasn't published. But yeah.
Cool.
That Elm Root library has a lot of users, so just put Elm Root into and see.
Cool. Hop has been around for a while too.
Hop has actually not been updated for 0918.
Oh, interesting. Cool. Yeah, like I said, I haven't really found much of a benefit from playing with any of those things. So sticking with navigation and URL parser has been just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the conclusion that Sporto, who made Hop, came to as well, I think.
Good deal. All right, I think I'm scrolling back to see if there's any questions we missed. I think we're all caught up right now. Yeah. Oh, here's a question. Okay, so with navigation and URL parser, do you generate links from routes? Yeah, probably the same way that y'all do it, just by having a case statement over all the constructors for the route type, and then converting those to strings with concatenation. So it's kind of manual, but there's one thing I've learned from working with Elm. It's just that boilerplates is going to happen, and not having boilerplates not always the best. Like it's okay. Like once you've written it out the first time, it's not so bad to maintain.
Yeah, I don't think there's any particularly fancy tricks there.
I guess you could.
Although you could, yeah. So what? I'm gonna share my screen, I think.
Okay.
Let's see how this goes.
Stop biting me. Stop. Come here.
Okay. So, in theory, what you could have is your roots that look like this. So imagine you have like these two roots, which is user and admin. And then imagine that you actually have like admin home and admin settings. And what you could actually do is introduce a new thing, which is like admin root, which is home or settings. And then admin takes an admin root. And then what you could do is just implement like toString, which looks like this. No, wait. To URL. So it takes a root and then it returns a string. And then we're going to do the same thing for admin root. And that's just going to be toString. And then to URL is going to be like it's going to be can just be that. So then admin could be like but then because this is going to be a capital, so it's going to be a capital H, you can just pair it with like string.toLower. And when you have that there, then you can also do the same thing here, but you can actually just cut all this out and instead do the initial slash and toString of the whole root. So that's going to look like admin and home for like admin home. And then what we're going to do is actually just like split that up. So let's just make a new function for that. Union to URL, which is going to be like this. So we're going to do toString, and then we're going to string.split on the new space, and then we're going to do string.join slashes, but first we're going to do list.map string to lower, and then that means that you can just do this. Yeah. I don't know if anyone followed that. Does that make sense, Luke? Or
Yeah, it looks like it does.
yeah. So basically, the idea is that you have like your roots defined how they would come out, and then you can just have this generic method and just split on how Elm turns it to a string, and then join it together after converting it to whatever format you want.
If you have like a parameter or a couple parameters in a URL, and you're mapping those onto a more complex type, you might end up with some weird stuff. But
yeah,
as long as your routes are represented by union types with like primitives as parameters, you'll be good.
Yeah. But it would also still work even for like numbers. So let's say like ID, and that would be an int, and that will still be represented as like admin ID 5. So as long as you do splitting the right way and like take care of parentheses, then yeah. I don't know if that's helpful or not. It's just an idea. Like, yeah.
There's lots of wacky introspective stuff you can do with toString.
Yeah. As long as you are willing for it to possibly break between an Elm version,
Yeah.
then yeah.
I have this template library where you can make like a template string and then interpolate parts of a record into it. And I wanted to do something where the fields of the record didn't have to be all strings, or I didn't want it to be so you would have to pass in like a dot accessor function and then compose that with something that converts it to a string. So I did this thing where I use toString on everything, and then I use JSON decode to figure out if the thing was a string in the first place, because that will properly parse a string that's been toStringed because it's got the surrounding quotes. And then based on the results of the JSON decoding, to either return that string or the original one. So it automatically converts every type into a string as you would expect it to be, kind of in something you're showing to the user. There's a lot of weird stuff you can do with strings that you should always ask whether or not you should be doing it before you do it.
The initial pass of Elm server-side renderer for 0.17 tried to do something similar. So you can turn HTML messages to string now because they are just represented by JSON objects. And so in theory, if you call toString on HTML message, then what you'll get out is a JSON blob that is parsable. But unfortunately, the way that Elm does pretty printing of strings means that for things like JS arrays, it will actually iterate through the array using like for each syntax, basically. So it comes out as like what looks like a record where all the fields are numbers.
Oh wow, gotcha.
So it's not quite parsable by JSON. Like you have to parse it again and fix things up. And yeah, so that almost worked.
Nice. Oh, can I move the mouse off of your face? Yes, I can. Ha. That was an easy one. Okay, we're all caught up on questions again. Oh, no, we're not. Okay. Russell asks if we know when the navigation API will be stable. Was the navigation API?
I'm pretty sure it's stable right now.
Yeah.
It has been for a release at least.
Yeah.
But do you mean, maybe, do they mean navigation or do they mean Elm?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah. Hey, Russell, if you could let us know which API you're talking about, that would be great. We can answer your question better.
Navigation is definitely considered stable.
Yeah. With Elm, though, no idea. It's kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know how to start answering that. I wouldn't expect syntax to change too much going forward, but again, I don't. Okay, Elm's API. Okay, yeah. I wouldn't expect syntax to change. Let me rephrase. I would be personally surprised if syntax changed too much going forward. But I have no way of saying that definitively.
Yeah, I think stable is a big, difficult question, like as a concept. When it comes to like a programming language, like what makes a language stable. But you can definitely use Elm in production right now. And Evan has been really good lately at keeping people up to date on the mailing lists. So if you are worried about that and you are using Elm in production, then you should subscribe to the Elm Dev mailing list. And you'll be able to like play with the alphas and hear what Evan is working on and stuff like that. So yeah, difficult question.
Yeah. I will say for sure, Evan released. He does always release like preview compilers and versions of the core libraries and package server. So there's always ample time to at least see what needs to be done and make a plan before the actual release. It's never like a huge surprise. There's always a couple weeks of lead time. Okay. I wonder if there's any questions on Twitter. I don't see any. And thank you to Justin for making sure all of the chats are in sync with questions. All right, so we've been at this for about 50 minutes. Do you want to go till 12 or for about 10 more minutes?
Yep, that sounds good to me.
Cool. Okay, so Douglas asks, as a self-learner of Elm, does Douglas have to learn JavaScript as well?
I would say it depends what you're trying to do. I don't think JavaScript knowledge will help you, except I actually think that JavaScript knowledge will hinder you if you're trying to learn Elm. Then what happens quite often that I see people struggling with is if they have learned how JavaScript does things and they come to Elm and like Elm is completely different. Like it's not the same and you can't solve the problems in the same way. So I would say that it's not necessarily a terrible thing, but you might be surprised at how well people learn Elm without knowing anything else. And actually, a whole bunch of schools have made the case that teaching Haskell as a first language is actually really good, and students can uh, understand Haskell a lot easier than the people who first learned Java or Python. Um, because what tends to happen is the student's brain will get like attached to object oriented or like imperative. But if they are from like declarative languages from the offset, then that's really good for learning declarative languages.
I think Haskell is a cool starter language too because you can do incrementally more complex things with Haskell without like immediately starting to throw pragmas at the top of your file and doing crazy stuff.
Yeah, there's no need for like 8 lines of public class declarations and imports.
Yeah. I found my Elm learning experience the first couple of weeks was mostly just like unlearning the way I would do stuff in JavaScript, like unlearning thinking about object-oriented components in React and unlearning kind of using mutability when it suits me in JavaScript in different places. So maybe if you are starting with Elm, you haven't learned JavaScript, you'll just be free of a bunch of bad habits that come from dealing with JavaScript for a long time before that and doing UI programming with JavaScript. I haven't I haven't talked to anybody who did Elm before JS extensively about that, so I can't say for sure. But
I had a whole bunch of, a whole bunch. I had 3 students who hadn't used JS before, but they had used Haskell before.
cool,
And they found like pretty easy to get around with and work it out.
good deal.
But JS really does come in handy when there's something in Elm that you can't do. Yeah, I don't know. I would say learn the bits of JS that you need to be able to work with your Elm programs, and don't worry about anything else.
Totally. I've been thinking about an analogy recently that to me Elm is like a bass guitar and JavaScript is like a regular guitar. You can do like really crazy stuff with JavaScript, which I mean to reference like Node and doing stuff on the server and doing stuff on microcontrollers and all kinds of crazy stuff because it's more general purpose and there's more options because there's more strings on the guitar and there's more available to you. And the bass has 4 strings and it's really for a specific purpose in your ensemble. In the way that Elm is for developing UI and there's less options to break out from that. And I like that analogy because I learned the guitar before I learned the bass, and I played the bass like a guitar, and I was really bad at it for a long time because I was trying to do something I already knew, which didn't apply. Okay, a couple more questions now. So one is sort of community policy related. Um, this person asks, shouldn't bugs like big case statement expression compiler issues be fixed in a 18.1 release rather than 0.19?
So I expect what happened there is that Evan was changing how the compiler worked and happened to fix that while he was in there changing how it worked. And that change was for 0.19. So I suspect there wasn't a way, like it, no, basically, like it's like in theory, yes, bug fixes should be a minor release, and that has happened before. But I suspect this isn't what happened this time. It was just a nice thing that got fixed alongside everything else.
Evan likes to have stories for the things that he changes. So that generally defines his work. So he's working on um, the theme of 0.19 is like bundling and packaging and stuff like that. So okay, so Justin asked us if there are any particularly good intros to Elm. And he especially likes something that walks through building an application. Do you have a favorite Elm tutorial?
Not really. It's hard for me to say because it's been like a long time since I've really looked through any.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Elmbridge stuff is actually really good. Let me find the link for that.
Oh yeah, awesome.
But there's also an Elm tutorial, and there's just like the Elm guide itself.
Yeah.
And then Richard is writing a book,
Yes.
which you can get bits of now, I think.
Yes, for sure. So I'm going to share elmtutorial.org, which is a walkthrough of building an application. So that answers Justin's clarification.
And there's the Elmbridge curriculum, which is designed at getting people running Elm application in like 2 days. But it's also designed to be run as a workshop, so it's not necessarily so good for self-learning. But
okay, so there's the Elmbridge. Wait a minute. No, that's the wrong link. Google Hangouts should really put a space between messages. Okay, there's the Elmbridge curriculum. And what was the other thing? I can't remember where else we mentioned.
Just the Elm guide itself, I guess.
Okay, the Elm guide, right on. This isn't about building a full application, but it will get something that runs and does things.
Yeah.
Oh, you mentioned Richard's book. Okay.
Oh yeah, and that as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Fred shared. Pragmatic Studio updated for 0.18, and it's not free, but it is good. Thanks, Fred. And then I'll get a link to Richard's book, which is also not free. Oh, nice. He's halfway done. That's great. Okay. So it's 12:30, so let's cut off questions, but answer the remaining ones. So we have somebody asking about your quote. Oh, remember when people were doing that, like, hi, my name is whatever, and something about programming on Twitter? Somebody quoted yours, and it was about that you're a elmlang user and contributor, and you think Elm still hasn't solved approaches to scalable single-page apps yet. And so the question was, is this on a list for Evan to work on?
So from my perspective, yes. Like Evan, 0.19 is going to solve some of the problems with making scalable single-page applications based on the way that changes to production applications is going to happen, which you can read about on the Elm Dev mailing list if you're interested. But that's going to make a whole bunch of stuff nicer. And then the other problem that I find like a particular pain point is to do with how update functions look when you have a lot of nested pages. And And as far as I know, that is also, there's a big thread about it in the mailing list right now. So I would assume it's been seen. And actually, Richard is collecting examples. So if you go to the Elm Discuss mailing list, and if you have a particular big update function that needs a setter or like a way of updating a record, but right now it looks horrible. If that would be the place to put it, because the more information on what looks bad, what doesn't look bad, what is hard to do, what is easy to do, then the better the design of a language feature is going to be.
Good deal. So now I think, okay, so this is the last question. So Matt asks on bundling and packaging, if there's any attention being given to Nix expressions for Elm apps. And I don't know anything about Nix other than that it exists, so I will leave that to you if you have a good answer.
I have no idea what that means. Like I know what Nix is, but I don't see how that ties into it. No? Oh, I see. You just mean like pointing to a particular commit or a particular, like, directly to a repository rather than published packages, right? I assume that's what that means. I think it's possible that some of these changes will happen in 0.19, but we don't know yet. So what you want right now can be achieved by something called Elm GitHub install. Like if you want to be able to take a URL from GitHub and put it in your Elm package file, then Elm GitHub is installed as the tool to do that right now. But this is the focus. Like the changes to how packages work is the main focus of 0.19. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah. Assuming that's what you meant.
Yeah. Okay. We got through all the questions. I don't see anything on Twitter. Good deal.
Cool. Awesome.
So I realized we didn't do introductions before we started. So if you want to introduce yourself.
Introduce myself. I was Noah, otherwise known as EUE56. I do lots of Elm stuff. Yeah.
My name is Luke, and I also do lots of Elm stuff. And thank you to Code and Supply for hosting us. And thank you to Justin from Code and Supply for putting in the effort and taking the time in the middle of his day to set this up. I hope we did a good job answering your questions. We'll see you again.
Yep. Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.